Hi, this is Steve Baker again, here to make another editing video. My first one that I put on the other day, I think did a pretty good job of explaining how I use layers and blending modes and things like that, but only really if you know a fair bit already about Photoshop. So what I'm going to try and do this time is break things down a little bit more. And I'm using this picture I took in 2011 in Ghanatown in Africa. In Gambia in Africa. Ghanatown's a little fishing village and not enormously visited by tourists. And as I say, it's a picture I took then. I've chosen this quite deliberately because it's actually quite a troubling picture in lots of ways in terms of the quality of what I've got here. This is the version that I uploaded originally to a few websites and got quite a lot of attention with. But looking at it, I can see quite a lot of problems with what I've done here. I think I've over brightened the eyes and essentially, in a sense, a bit over edited. You can see around here, there's a kind of halo, which is where you sort of the contrast is too great between the arm and the background, and it just looks a little bit overcooked. So I've basically had another go and re-edited it, and this is what I've ended up with. Here we go. So I feel a little bit better, and I just want to show you the stages I went through for this. First of all, what I'll just show you is this is the original picture, and if I just open this in Camera Raw for a second, and you can just have a look at the settings of this picture, you can see this is as I say 2011. It's before I really knew very much about photography. I was using a Panasonic G1 camera, it was fine at the time, but nothing particularly special in what it's doing. And I clearly, looking at this, I didn't have much of a clue about how to use it back then, because for some reason I'm in a very hot, sunny weather, bright day, but I've allowed the camera to go into ISO 800, which reduces the quality very much. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see there's not much definition to a lot of this. There's a fair bit of noise there, and not particularly high quality. All I would have needed to do actually is to reduce the shutter speed a little bit from that ridiculous 1600. I mean, there's nothing moving there, so I didn't really need that, and I could have got a better shot, and would do these days. I also would these days actually take the picture in RAW, which would allow me to use these kinds of camera RAW settings more than I can now, without degrading the picture. So I'll just come out of that a little bit. So I'm going to take you through bit by bit the processes I go through. I've got here the whole file already done, and this is here really to remind me, and I'm going to go through stage by stage. And my plan is that I'm actually going to pause a few times and make this into several videos in a little series, so that no one has to deal with too much in one go. But I'm going to start with some processes I do in a program called Nik efex. And Nik Color Efex is part of the Nik collection. Absolutely amazing piece of free software, which came out a few years ago. Google bought it up a couple of years back, and it looked as if it was about to die, but it is still available for free. And the plan is, I believe that there's going to be a paid version coming out, produced by another company fairly soon, and it definitely would be worth paying for. This is by far the best thing I use apart from Photoshop itself. Now, what you have in Color Efex is a whole bunch of different plugin sort of presets, which are based on replacing a lot of things that people used to do with photography. And I'm going to just show a few. I'm going to start with a vignette, and you can see there's quite a lot of vignette there, and I'm just going to change a few of the settings there. So I'm going to keep the adapting, and I'm going to keep the transition there, but I'm going to mess with this opacity a little bit, I think, because that's way too much. So let's just bring that down. And I've got a fairly subtle vignette there. Okay. Now, what I'm now going to do is to add a second filter. So I can add filters along like this, and the one I'm going to add is a thing called Pro Contrast. And there's nothing happened yet, but I'm going to change this dynamic contrast up. Let's just keep that going up. Let's have a look at around about something like there. And yeah, quite like what it's doing there. Going to add in another one, and this one is called the detail extractor. Detail extractor does kind of what it sounds like, and I'm going to actually leave the settings that are there at the moment. You're going to find once I've done this, I'm actually going to paint bits of this out, because I wouldn't want this happening on all of the image. But I quite like what it's doing in places to add some kind of structure to what's there. Just take it up so you can see an extreme of that, and take it down again. But let's say I had it around about there. Okay. Going to add one last one. A lot of pictures that come out of cameras are a little bit flat in terms of the colour, and so I'm going to put a little bit of warmth on there. Go like that, and I'm going to go OK on that. Take a bit of time to come through because my really very slow computer. And there we go. Now you can see already there's quite a lot of change there. I'm not going to use that as it is. I'm going to do something a bit fancier, and you can see that in the next chapter. Thanks.